Hey everyone, Dice back with another video. As you can probably see straight away, just a bit of a different layout and setup going on, and also different background. I've just changed jobs, so I'm working away from home a lot, and just during my downtime, I'm trying to still record and still do things, but it's going to be done from my work laptop instead of my home PC. So I'm trying the best I can, try and keep my mind on MCP in the downtime that I get. But as you're going to be able to kind of work out, it's a bit of a different setup, and I'm just trying my best. I had to try and make it up on the fly at camp, so bear with me. That's an update there. Update on myself when it comes to the TTS League. At the minute, we're 2-0 in Season 10, so that's pretty good on the way to making top cut. I think that's the goal. That's probably the personal goal for me every season, is just try and make top cut. It looks like it's going to be pretty tight for Oceanic. It looks like early on we're probably only going to get 2 go through, just by the numbers and the way the win-loss stuff kind of works out. So I'll be trying my best, but we'll see how we end up with that one. With this whole bit of change going on, I'm kind of just changing the whole thing here. Instead of kind of sticking to a theme at, I was doing Hydra and then Sentinels, etc., etc., I'm just going to do things that I'm enjoying, which happens to be someone from Winterguard, which is great, as you can probably tell by the title. I'm just going to talk about my boy Dynamo here. But that's kind of the way I'm going to do this now. I'm just going to kind of pick something that I'm enjoying in the game and kind of talk about them. If it's a character, if it's a tactics card, whatever, that's kind of how I'm going to do content now. This is kind of a test piece as well, so I'll see if the camp Wi-Fi can handle uploading a video onto YouTube or not, but we'll see how we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for now, let's talk about my boy Dynamo. Now, he's kind of fallen in and out of favor a bit here. I think on release, a lot of people, like the general vibe on Dynamo was that no good, and he was. It wasn't that he was bad. It was just that he was glossed over very quickly, and a lot of that came down to the fact that he is a leader model. So he was kind of judged on his leadership and his ability to be the leader of the Winterguard and playing him in Winterguard. Because if you think about it, you don't really consider Green Goblin or Steve Rogers outside of their affiliation, and I kind of think he fell into that kind of mold. There is an argument for those two that I just mentioned to be played out of affiliation, but Crimson Dynamo is one where currently he is, we're kind of all coming around to Dynamo outside of Winterguard, and I think a very good member of the community that's doing that is Kirkov. I think he won LVO. I think in his final he had Dynamo in the list on the table. So if that's not a shining light, I don't know what is. And probably the funniest thing there, he's actually a really good counterpiece to Kirkov's list. So that's something to keep in mind. Generically speaking, I think Dynamo is an amazing anti-attrition piece. So if you're looking for something, if you're meta or your local meta, and if you're playing on TTS and you're noticing this, or if you're playing at local shop, you're noticing this, if people are trying to beat you up, just slot Dynamo into your list, man. Like, he is the best anti-attrition piece pretty much in the game for his threat cost, like pound for pound, threat for threat. I think he's definitely fits that role really well. And if we consider at the turn of the new crisis that we got introduced, I think a lot of people, including myself, was very much on the way of Shadowlands Daredevil is going to be the next big bad in the meta. Like, he was kind of poised to, everyone's got to spread out their objectives now. Like, the extracts aren't usually on one person, except for, I guess, cubes and a couple of them. But your extracts usually spread around now. So Shadowlands Daredevil was definitely an option, and I've not seen it in my local meta, and also not in the Oceanic TTS League. But if you're saying, like, it's a weird one, I feel like he should be pushed a lot more, but he's not for whatever reason. If you are seeing him and that is an issue for you, man, just slot Dynamo into your list. So he is pretty much just a death knell to the list straight up. You can just walk up and shake their hand and say, sorry, see you later. We'll get to why later on, but yeah, if you're struggling with people trying to beat you up, if you just chuck this guy on your list. All right, but let's talk about why he is so good. So just his stats in general. So 6 stamina. That's both sides as well. So he's a 12 all up. He's only short mover. He gets around that with his other action economy. Size 3 is only an issue when it comes to being thrown into your own guys. Like, taking 4 auto damage is not great, but that's kind of the biggest downfall I felt of his size 3, and I kind of feel that a bit. And 4 threat and a 4-3-4 stat line. If you combine that with, and we'll get to, he's got damage reduction. I think he's actually the tankiest 4 threat in the game, and if you just kind of say that alone, the 4-3-4, 6 health, and -1 damage, he has to be in the discussion. Like, he just automatically becomes top 3 hardest to kill 4 threats. And then once we get to it, the disruption field, when we factor that into the whole discussion, I really do believe Crimson Dynamo he's the hardest to kill 4th threat in the game. And I think that's like a no challenge thing as well. He is there. But if we run through all his abilities and stuff, so I kind of had touched on his leadership, and I'm going to start with the bads and probably the reason why he was kind of overlooked early on. And that's his leadership is the first thing, and I'll talk about it because we're talking about Dynamo. So it's at the start of a character activation, you can shake an action for a condition for free. Now, I played a bit of Winter Guard, and what I found was, when this is good, it is good. It feels good. But a lot of times it's kind of whatever, because when you're getting conditions, I notice if you're getting attacked, you're going to get conditions. You're probably going to get days as well. So a lot of the time it wasn't really mattering, but the times when it was mattering, it was actually quite good. So I was bringing my Hulk or Malekith, they're getting staggered. All of a sudden they're functionally immune to stagger. People had their own dynamos and they were shocking me, and being able to shake shock for free on your damage dealers was actually quite effective, and it felt really good. So it's one of them ones where when it's good, it's good. When it's not, it's a whatever kind of leadership. The second part of it, the weird no push if you're on a secure, if you roll a successful block on 1 die so you don't get pushed. Yeah, whatever. It's kind of like a whatever. It comes up every now and then. It's mildly frustrating. It's kind of like a whatever, just kind of tacked on to the end of it. So the leadership overall is kind of, the way I describe it is, it's not fun, but it is effective. So it is effective. It's not fun. You're not going out and going, wow, I love Winterguard because I love playing their leadership. And that was one of the reasons why he was overlooked. The other part that he was kind of overlooked on release is his spender is Iron Man spender. It's range 5 dice, cost 2, explosive, ignores line of sight cover. Sure, I've never used this. So in the 30, 40 games or whatever I've played of Dynamo, never once have I wanted to do homing rockets. And I think that's kind of the way that'll work out, unless you specifically, oh man, if I hit this explosive, I'm going to, chip damage these two and get 2 dazes and win the game. I think a lot of times you just ignore homing rockets. Don't even think it's on there. I would love to see it have a little addition on there saying something along the lines of, for the extra 1 to 3 power, add 1 to 3 dice. That would be kind of cool. Like, make it a 3-cost spender, and if you add 3 extra power, you can throw 8 dice or something. That'd be kind of cool. But it's not that, so let's just move on. The other part is his energy blast. Now, I feel like this is one of the 3 big reasons you're taking him. So anyone who's played Vision knows how good this is. Beam 4. Beam 4 is big. It's pretty big. 5 dice. 5 dice is fine. The other part is that it is energy. Energy is the best type in the game. Like, I think that's kind of well documented. Like, the math on it all, it just gets through. It usually does the most damage when it comes to your opponent's defenses. So it being energy and an energy beam, it's really effective. And rolling, if you can catch 3 people in that, the chances are with 3 sets of 5 dice, you're going to spike one of those rolls. That's just kind of the way that math works out with MCP dice, and that's what I've been doing with him, is you're kind of just throwing dice at him as much as possible, and on that third, one of those 3 is you're gonna push some damage through. The other part of the attack, it's like I said, it's just like Vision. You gain a power every attack you make. So what you will find, exactly the same as with Vision, he has an abundance of power. The difference I found with Dynamo in the comparison of Vision is Dynamo really can spend that power. He can actually make use of that. So this attack is so good for him because he loves that power generation. The other part of it is the shock. So this is what I was saying earlier, where putting shock on your opponent is a wild shock, so it's not guaranteed. So that's something to bear in mind. It's very good against Kirkov's LVO list, because that whole list, same as Strayland's Daredevil, is designed to paper cut you. It's designed to just throw out multiple small attacks and just chip you away. So if we just take that into consideration with Dynamo himself, all of a sudden, instead of doing a 4 dice rapid fire, you're doing a 3 dice rapid fire into 4 defense with -1 damage. It's not good. And you're not even that good odds to hit your rapid fire trigger. So it pretty much is a stagger for those rapid fire idiots. And on that note, again, like, to double that down on why he's so good against those 2 list archetypes in particular, those rapid fire guys are usually 3-threat idiots. Like, they're just 5 health, 3 threat, 3/3 kind of across the board. the electric blast is very good at getting rid of them. So if you can just tag a bunch of them, all of a sudden it's 5 dice into 3 a couple of times, and all of a sudden if that's his 2 actions, he's throwing out 2 beams. You'll print money with that and daze a bunch of 3 threats. So the dice is great, the range is good, the power generation is great, and the shock is absolutely money. So all in all, that attack is one of the 3 key reasons you're taking Dynamo. All right, so let's get into his superpowers here. So the overcharge capacitors, this is, again, same as Vision. It's an action, but you gain 2 power. So what I found is this is pretty handy. I found it pretty handy as an advanced R&D option turn 1. So I will just move action and then share 2 or 3 power around, depending if it's a pay to flip or not. Like you can do it on demons, you can do it on sword, and still pay to flip. It's good. What I do find is you kind of do want 1 power left on Dynamo, just so at the start of turn 2 he has 2 power, and then he can do his next one that they place. So I do find it handy to have 1 power on him. So if you are going to use Dynamo as your advanced R&D target, like I do, the action to do 2 power is pretty handy. Almost never use it after turn 1. That's just kind of the way that works. I think Vision's the same as well. You just have an abundance of power, and it's not something that you very often do. Propulsion thrusters, this is what I was talking about, the action economy. So it costs 2, place 2. Pretty straightforward, right? So you spend 2 power and places. This is absolutely money. This really does. This is probably the second reason you're actually taking him. Like he is this action economy compared in conjunction with the beam, being able to get that place to get those wicked angles is amazing. And if we double that down, I think this goes for a couple of different affiliations. And I've been playing him under Malekith, which has the outside of turn move. And if you think Malekith or Sam Wilson or even Blade's bump, like if you can get that stacking movement going on, you can actually set up for some really good beams here. And I think that superpower is quite important to be able to make Dynamo do 2 beams a turn, because that's kind of how he wants his turns to be played, is like a place and then a double beam to try to gain as much power as possible, because we'll get to it. He wants that power to do the disruption field. But besides that, being able to have that beam, the extra attacks, if he hits just 2 people with his beam twice, and I've been playing him next to Zemo, that's 24 dice you're rolling. That's just hitting 2 guys. Imagine if you're hitting 3 multiple times. Like the amount of dice you're rolling it just stacks up. So the propulsion thrusters gets a wicked tick for me. It's so handy for his beam and his suite of attacks. Next one is disruption field. So cost 2, this superpower. This is kind of the second or third, whatever. The last reason you're taking Dynamo is for disruption field. So I'll just read it verbatim, right? So when this character or an allied character is targeted by an attack by an enemy that the enemy is within 3, this character may use this superpower. Now, this character may reroll up to 2 of the attacker's dice. So the important thing there is that you pay for this superpower before you see your opponent's dice. And that's very important. Like this is a very good superpower, but it's not so good that you get to roll your attack dice, roll your defense dice, and then go, oh yeah, I kind of want to use this and make a reroll. Unfortunately, it's not the way that works. But even still, it is an amazing superpower and one that's this is why you're taking Crimson Dynamo. So if your opponent is looking for wild triggers, or if your opponent is just looking for, any triggers, this is so good of just saying no to them. Like flurries, all that kind of stuff, turn it off. There is an interesting interaction with Pierce and the timing of modified dice steps. So I suggest looking at that yourself. It's all on the timing step. It's a weird one where if they hit their Pierce, they'll hit it. If you make them reroll into a Pierce, they won't hit it. That's the general way that kind of works. But just look at the modified dice timing on this one. It is really good, right? So the interesting thing here, though, is Dynamo has to be within 3 of your opponent, like the enemy making the attack. So he kind of has to play right in the middle of the board. And you have to understand that playing Dynamo in the middle of the board is exactly where he wants to be. He wants to be right in the middle of the board so he can tag everyone with the disruption field, as well as being able to port to range 2 and get his cool beams on like the following turn. And he can do this because he actually is, like I said, in my opinion, he is the tankiest 4 in the game, like 4-3-4, -1 damage, 6 health on both sides, and disruption field. And if you think about it, if he's taking chip damage, he's getting power to use disruption field again and again and again. So he is the tankiest 4 threat in the game, and I don't think that's really challengeable. And because of that, he can sit in the middle of the board and threaten to disruption field enemy characters attacking enemies as well. So I stand by that opening comment that he's probably the best anti-attrition piece in the game. If you're suffering from, a bit of attrition burnout from your opponents, chuck this guy on your list. His last superpowers, he's -1 damage and flight. I think I've already talked about him. So yeah, -1 damage on that stat line is superb. Things that Dynamo does well is healing. So if you can heal Dynamo in any way, it's fantastic. If that's playing him under Sam, playing him under Malekith, if it's Strucker as well, I'll be dishing out a shock and then healing one. Any sort of healing on Dynamo can really hurt your opponent's feelings because they have to work so hard to be able to push that damage through. That's pretty much it. I like him in anything that can kind of help his movements, like because if you can double down on that movement. But for the most part, I feel like he just wants to go in every list. So he's a Shadowlands Daredevil, counter. He's kind of counters shield in a way. He's just very generically good, and I think he replaces that, that unaffiliated fourth threat. I think he takes that spot in a lot of lists now. He does for me anyway, and I would suggest people do it in their lists as well. But that's it. That's pretty much all I want to talk about on Dynamo. So not too sure what I'm going to do in the next one. It'll just be something another character or tactics card that I'm enjoying. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Cheers.